before we get rolling with questions, I'll just kind of recap last game and stuff. That obviously was a tough night down in Lubbock against an excellent football team. We can't dig ourselves a hole, 21 points and against a top 10 team and expect to battle back. We did scrap to get 17 there for the half, but sustaining that was extremely difficult. Execution-wise, we give up. We're not gap sound on the first play of the game and give up an immediate touchdown, turn the ball over right back to them. Those things just, don't give you much of a chance in a night like that. So didn't protect Jalen very well. Obviously 9 sacks, and it became a highly, we got ourselves behind the sticks a lot and allowed them just to tee off, which made it even more of a hill to climb. It was a tough night that way all the way around. So we had 2 third and ones, I believe, in the second half. That one we get stuffed on a run, the other we get like a 10-yard sack, takes us out of field goal range. All those type of things that made it difficult. But I think most of you guys know that already. But just recapping areas of improvement, obviously pass protection. Again, we got to be better in the red zone. Our gap discipline and communication defensively has to continue to improve. Again, we continue to work on different people in some of those spots there, especially in the secondary. But any and everything else regarding that night, I think, has been commented on enough, and really have no further statements at this time. So, fire away.
With the gap control stuff, is there something that's happening over and over again, or is it sort of malfunctions at different parts?
It's malfunctions at different parts. If you really say, again, I think I've said this before, Kevin, is that if it was a person or a place where we could, this guy's not where he's supposed to be, and it's one guy all the time. It's different people at different times. It's continual communication, but obviously we leave an inside gap open right from the get-go, and that's very frustrating. As I had a chance to catch different parts of games this weekend, I watched different people gash runs, and I'm kind of like, wonder how he's answering that question after the game as well, because it's frustrating for everybody. I know it's frustrating for our fans, which can be better in those situations, but sometimes it's some of our best players that are doing those things. But it has to be a continual thing that we've worked on, and we need to be better. Otherwise, we're going to allow a team that's pretty dangerous to have a big day here Saturday.
Pass protection, when you have struggles like that, how do you sort of rebuild that confidence over
you're working on it, but again, you got some pretty explosive players on that side that, okay, you give them some help, you try chipping. We've talked about other things that we've tried to work on practice-wise, and handling things, handling stunts, communication, all those things that kind of get to guys that, pass protection, a lot of times it's technique, it's being physical, but a lot of times it can be confidence, and sometimes when you get yourself in a situation in a night like that, it gets pretty tough, and I think we that got to us a little bit, obviously.
This spring, right before the start of the spring, we had a chance to talk to you, and we talked to Sleeve, and one of the things that he had said was when you guys were working on finishing, players had to kind of hear or watch the last 2 minutes of last year's K-State game sort of over and over again going through that process. Was that something that you guys did all off season, and do you think that...
We did it on a regular basis because that was one, of course, we had battled with a lot of finishes, but that one was definitely a pretty bitter pill to swallow in a lot of different ways of opportunities, and again, from non-conversions to allowing things, they won the special teams that night as well, and creating a big kick. We have a chance, much like a Cincinnati game this year, you have a chance to probably end it with an interception, a turnover and stuff, and unfortunately it doesn't happen. But again, there's a lot of things there that we want to continue to try to emphasize on finishing ball games.
You think the K-State element, like players will have any sort of added oomph or whatever because they've had to sort of watch that or go through that?
I hope, but again, again, as I said, I heard it, is that I've said this to you guys before. I think earlier in the season, heading into the Missouri game, is I don't know a way. Guys know what, if it's a rival game and why, whether a guy just got here 6 months ago or 4 months ago, whatever it may be, or 6 years ago. The guys know that. But I always say this is that, well, they got to be extra fired up. They got to be this. Does that mean they're not fired up for other games or they're not prepared for other games? I don't know, and I try to think of it as if I was a baseball player, do I try to hit the ball? Am I hitting it harder? What am I doing? No, you have a routine of trying to do your job, and you should be playing at your fullest each and every snap, no matter who you're playing against. But I do hope that there's an extra sense of urgency and attention to detail and some things that hopefully is more purposeful and intentional as we go through a game like this. Obviously, we've knocked on the door on this a few times, but we've got to be able to play well for 60 minutes on Saturday. I didn't notice. When did we do all this in here, guys? I just kind of caught my eyes. So, but
bye week, were you guys able to get healthy? What were you able to get accomplished?
We're still working through that. Not as healthy as we'd like to be yet in some spots, and some guys didn't practice yesterday. But we're hoping as we get to game day and we get to this first, I think you'll be able to see some of that in the first report here on Wednesday, where we're kind of trending. But I do feel. Daniel Highshaw getting him Daniel played more in that game than we even anticipated, and he seems to be trending in a good direction for us that way. That was a high positive. Taylor Davis continues to work through things, and we're getting some gutty performances from guys, but I don't think we're any better or any worse than anybody in the country right now when it comes to health.
You watch Kansas State. Number one, what do you see on film, and do you see anything different than maybe the last couple of years personnel-wise?
Again, what I see is a team that's been, kind of, snake bitten in some of this thing of how they've gone about, a lot of close games. They lose their probably their most dynamic player on the first punt of the year, and Dillon's been in and out of games. He is so dynamic, and you can see it when he's healthy and on the field. You take Jace Brown, Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards. When those three guys are on the field playing together, they have as much speed and explosiveness than any team in the Big 12 and compare with a lot of people nationally when they're all there and healthy. I think Oakley as a tight end has been highly impressive in how they've used him and the plays that he's made. They continue to have very good depth at tight end. They've added a couple receivers through the portal that are big physical guys who have been effective in the red zone, extremely strong in perimeter blocking. Again, it's a team that probably hasn't been exactly where Chris would like them, but again, a highly dangerous team. And when you watch parts of their game, you could see why they were a conference favorite early in the season and still have a chance. And I know they'll be confident enough after their last few weeks here that they can finish strong here down the stretch.
Lance, I know you touched on this a little bit, but when you look at the film, what's the biggest thing you see issue-wise with the run defense? I know that's been a problem as of late.
Well, again, I would continue to say it's a different thing on different plays sometimes. Again, it can be, is it gap integrity? Is it missed tackles? Is it angles? Is it communication that causes the breakdown and somebody being free? There's usually one of those components usually happen in there that is the problem, and we continue to work on it.
Obviously, Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards are kind of prolific runners. What have you seen from them when you watch the film?
Again, when they're on, again, when when Avery decides to run the ball, he's dangerous to score at any time. But again, I think his throwing is very underrated at time, and you can continue to see the evolution of an outstanding quarterback. That's, again, when they have people there that they're able to use schematically to continue to be dangerous with RPOs, motions, all the different things that they are able to do. Coach Wells has done a nice job, and I think also that after a few games, and I don't have it exactly when they made a couple moves in the offensive line that I think has solidified some things for them and have made them better along the line. I know I didn't talk much defensively. Again, can be very disruptive. Impressed with the consistent physical play of their linebackers. Guys in the secondary, good Wesley Fair, another state player, has been very productive for him. You can see him kind of evolve into an experienced player that's playing with a lot of confidence out there for them, and I think they feed off of that. So again, challenges across the board, just like we'd expect.
I might be wrong, but it feels like the quarterback option game maybe hasn't been as prevalent in the game plans. Is that a decision to protect Jalen? Is it scheme related? What's maybe contributed to that?
It's what we're seeing defensively that's playing a big part in that. And you can see, and obviously we haven't. What was it, Cincinnati game? We ran one. They had a bad pitch, and as soon as you do that, you probably don't run stuff as much. You've got to make sure it's the clean looks that you want to do it, but it's still part of the plan, and it will be. But I just think some of the things that when it's fallen into a time that we could call it and stuff, it's looks that make it extremely difficult to get executed.
And when Jalen has been in the pocket passer role, any metric out there is going to show you he's one of the better players in the country. What's impressed you most about what he's been able to do throwing the football?
Again, the composure and consistency that we have, and kind of go off on side. Part of our last game is, Jalen's made a lot of plays for this program, extending plays, and at times, sometimes when it doesn't go well, everybody's a little like, what's he doing? Why are we doing that? Sometimes you got to live with both sides of that. But when he has stayed in the pocket, and what you've seen in some of our games is, he's been steadily going through his progressions extremely well, where I don't think that was necessarily the case a year ago. And because of that, and trusting and experience and going through that, I think he's been able to continue to build on confidence and again, spreading that ball around.
And then at left tackle, just how would you evaluate the position and the level of play you've gotten?
Well, we've only had one left tackle, so you're asking about one player, aren't you? Okay, I would say that Calvin's played okay. I think we know Calvin. Calvin knows he needs to play better, and we need him to play better. And he's a little banged up at the moment, but he's given us everything we've asked of him, and I think it's been up and down, and I don't think he would disagree with that.
This is your 5th Sunflower Showdown. How has the rivalry kind of evolved in your eyes over the last 4 times you've met, now going into the 5th?
Well, I said it, I think, my very first year here, and I kind of think, having a rivalry, one thing has to happen is that the games need to be competitive. And I don't know if it's much of a rivalry unless it's just based on locality, that if the game's not competitive. And I think the one thing we've been able to do after the first meeting 4 years ago was we've made the game competitive again. Now we've had some opportunities that we've let slip away, and it's our full intention that we find a way to close it out and finish the ball game when opportunity shows for us to have a chance to win.
And you're an early favorite in this game. I think the spread right now is 3.5 for KU. Is that some extra motivation?
For recreational purposes only, correct?
Yeah, right,
Okay.
Of course, yeah.
All right. Just checking.
So
I
that
didn't-
paired with this new stadium, how much do you anticipate these fans showing up and maybe more so than they have in years past?
Well, we need our fans there. I think you see it, and I think I've shared with people within our building. Our last 2 games on the road have been very impressive places to play by atmosphere. Okay, and one thing about our trip to Lubbock, it was the loudest place we played at this year. Our trip to Orlando was a very impressive game day atmosphere. We need to create that here at David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium, and I know as things go and as things goes, I don't know if we. You know, you can talk about Allen Fieldhouse. You know, it's one of the greatest places to play basketball. Why? It's the atmosphere. It's not that it's a whatever 100-year-old building or whatever it's at. You know, it's the atmosphere that's created, and it's created by the fans. And fans are in college football are more impactful than sometimes we can realize. And creating that atmosphere. Yes, we have a renovated 2/3 new, brand new, shiny stadium that's really impressive. But if we don't have an environment in there, it'll not be fully put to its use. And we need our students, we need our fans, and again in a state rivalry game like this, you know, we need it to be special, and not just for this game, but everyone there to follow, and it is important, and I get it. It's important for us to play well and give our fans reason to be excited about our program, but to me they kind of go together in what it can be, and I hope we have a great atmosphere at 11 a.m. Saturday.
Who are some of the players that you'll look to maybe to impress upon their teammates the importance of this game?
Say that again, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Who are some of the players that you'll rely on to like impress upon their teammates how important this rivalry in this game?
Well, again, I don't know if it's you could refer to our in-state players. You can return to, you know, I look at the guys who have been here a long time, whether it be, you know, of course, Jalen and Daniel and Keenan Caldwell and Emery Duger. We've got guys who have been here. The in-state players understand. I think, you know, when we started to talk about this game and kind of go through our preliminary stuff as we do, I kind of look in the room and he started looking at guys that haven't been here very long, but they get it, and they've been in those type of games in other programs that they're at. So, you know. Yeah, I just think that's you know, like I say, the continual way that it'll go through, and I think other leaders in our program that have been around talk to guys, and they get a good grasp of it.
And then I just wanted to ask, with Joseph having played in only 3 games this year, have you talked to him about the possibility?
Yeah, there's a lot of, you know, and unfortunately Joe was out the last game again. A lot of things are on the table there, but you know, we'll see where it plays out for Joe and where it's been. It's unfortunate. It's been a frustrating year for Joe. So
this feels like a camp question, or maybe even spring. But because K-State's had the same staff, how often do you look back at the 4 games you have played against Kleiman and his teams and try to look for trends and things like that when you're preparing for a game like this, or a game against anybody that's had that continuity?
Well, you know, Chris has done, and as I said, you know, there's probably. I'd say I have, you know, a great relationship, I believe, with Chris. I think a lot of them. I think I've said it from the day I arrived here. I think our similarities of our backgrounds are very parallel, but also a lot of things. He's probably the coach I may talk to the most in this league about when there's issues and things are going out, and sometimes that's not great for rivalries, but I think there's just goes with respect there. And we do look at a lot of things. But the one thing I think that people maybe not look at is he's on his 4th play caller since we've been here. He made a change after our first year. Okay, then he lost the coordinator, and he lost his play caller last year to the NFL. And again, in continuity for them, and you know, is a lot different as well. But there's still, you know, we'll watch for personnel, we watch how they've tacked us. But again, we have made changes along the way. But yeah, we go back and look at a lot of things as we go through, even as they've had changes in special teams coordinator that we'll continue to look at philosophically, you know, because that can be head coaching philosophy as well all the way through this, but we do.
And then with your running game, you talked about Daniel already. Leishon in good shape. Is this as good as maybe you guys have been there in a while?
Well, Leishon keeps working at it. You know, again, I'll tell you this, I got a lot of respect for him because, you know, he's one of those guys that, you know, Mondays and Tuesdays, you know, he's not moving real well, but he's also going to say, Coach, I'll be there for you on Saturday. And the game's important to him, and playing's important to him, and he does what he can. He's out there doing what he can, but Yeah, like I said, I would hope, especially with another open week like we had, that we're going to be about as good as we've been in a while, but it won't be perfect. I promise that in health right now. But again, I'm sure they feel the same on their side of it, so it is what it is.
You talked about making this rivalry more competitive in recent years, but since the losing streak against K-State even predates your own tenure, do you think that's anything mentally that weighs on anyone around this program trying to end that losing streak?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think, is there probably extra pressure? I sure hope it's not on the kids, okay? If it's going to be anybody, it should probably be on the head coach. But again, you know, this program is aware how many games they've won in a row. I'm not going to act like they don't, and we shared that with our players. So as part of the process of where this is at. But again, if they can't change what was done in the past, what you can change is what you do today and the work you put in and what you do on Saturday. So I hope not. But again, they're aware of the status and where it sits from series standing to what's happened over the last decade and a half to where we have to be on Saturday afternoon.
Looking at the metrics, you guys are around the top 25 in special teams with the year that Lace having, Finn's having, the coverage teams, return teams. Is this maybe the best special teams group that you've had here?
You know what? We talked about that last time, and they and wasn't it? Who was it that returned the kick? And was it Cincinnati or whatever? Then after the West Virginia game, so you're doing it to me again, aren't you? So, you know, we've been good in special teams, and it's a credit to all our guys that work with the units and do it, and Taiwo and Aaron Miller, Kyle Deween, and those guys. But you're always working to be better in that and more consistent. And you mentioned Finn and Lath. I mean, they've been extremely steady and great additions to our program. And Emmanuel and Tate Nagy's probably the guy that gets mentioned the least in the group because of, you know, and he's just, for a true freshman to go back there and do some of the things he's done has been impressive. So again, we're going to continue to need that. And as you get dinged up sometimes guys are playing more and you're trying to make adjustments and other things. Sometimes that personnel and some of those units change. But, you know, just to kind of counter that, we can go back. We haven't been that great in special teams against Kansas State. Okay, you know, you go back a couple years ago, Jay Burrows slips on the opening punt. Okay, and we fumble it or whatever and get the ball there. You know, we catch a kickoff and go out of bounds inside the 5 or whatever it was. I mean, we've shot ourselves in the foot and it's really kind of put us in some tough positions, and we're going to need to be a lot better than that on Saturday, and that'll continue to be a focus. Anybody else have anything? I know they want me to shut it down, but I want to make sure I'm not answering if you had something else. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks. Appreciate it.